Good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We're back, everybody. We're back. We did it. So it is really nice to be back here at Forestville. Our awesome host. What can you say? Look at this great screen, everything. It's magical here. And special thanks, I'll probably say it quite a few times today, to Mike Murphy, who's the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes and doing all kinds of stuff. And I'll talk more about Mike in just a minute. So it is time now to talk about big ideas and awesome tech tools. Tif Talks. That's what we are. I gotta laugh. I should leave now, right? So, first off, let me start with some thank yous. Such grateful thank yous to the people that made all of this happen. I'd like to thank first the TIF Advisory Committee, who helps put all this together. I like to say I'm just the front man of this operation. And I liken the Tif Talks advisory panel to kind of the EdTech Partridge Family. That's kind of a dated reference, right? Like nobody knows who the Partridge Family is anymore. So let me try it again. So we're the EdTech Goonies. How's that? All right, there we go. Goonies. All right. So, the problem with all my references is, I'm getting old and my references are getting old with them. So sorry about that. But anyways, so the TIF Advisory Panel is made up of the following people: Jody Huber from Brockton, Aimee Bloom from now Erie 1, Amanda Pacanowski from Fredonia, Jennifer McCula from Falconer, Patrick McMillan from Holland. Ooh, Holland. Holland wins the prize. Come on. We have Elizabeth Schonbacher from Erie 2, BOCES, Nicole Holler from Orchard Park, Mike Drezek from Lakeshore, and last but not least, Shaun Laska from Frewsburg. So thank you to all of those guys. They do a lot of work behind the scenes, making sure all of this happens for our events, not just today, but TIFCon. Don't forget TIFCon, June 7th. We'd love to have everybody there as well. It's going to be at SUNY Fredonia's Science Center, so a day of kind of unconference learning around EdTech. So June 7th, put that on your calendars. Let's see. And I'd also like to send a special thank you to our sponsors today. Our sponsors are Kensington Company, and if you click on the link on the website, and by the way, our website, I think, Patrick, did you create a bit.ly for this one?
No, Mike told me
not to. Okay. So we'll send out the link. If you haven't gotten the link, we'll get that out to you. To the website where everything is, everyone's presentation materials, etc. is there. But Kensington Company, we want to thank you. They paid for the pizza and salad this afternoon, so a round of applause for Kensington. We appreciate that support. The Tech Company provided the drinks for us today, so a round of applause for our Tech Company. And they'll be giving us a short presentation right before lunch. And then Ink Labs in the back there. Mike and Bill. A round of applause for those guys. Thank you for the coffee. And I also hope you got a chance to take a look at the tablet they have that goes along with the board. They gave one of those to be raffled off at the end of the day. So make sure you check it out and see what that's like if you haven't already. Oh, yeah. All right. So again, check out what they have back there, and again, a special thanks to those two for providing the coffee this morning. So really happy to have all of you here, and thanks for your sponsorship. And one other person, at lunch today, or if you haven't already gotten into it, we have some special cupcakes. And if you don't know Darlinda Miktuk, you probably all know Darlinda, but she is a world-class baker, and she provided cupcakes for us, so make sure you grab one of those cupcakes for today, and they've got a special message on those cupcakes. And last but not least, I want to say a huge thank you to our speakers. I really appreciate that you came on out. I know it's one extra thing on your plate, and I really appreciate it. I know it was this year of all years. Having one more thing on your plate is just too many things on your plate. So I appreciate all of you, and I really appreciate you coming out to do an awesome Tif Talk today. So those speakers are Carrie Davenport and Bryna Moritz from Pine Valley. Round of applause out there. Ryan McGinnis from which BOCES again, Ryan? CA BOCES. Thanks, Ryan. Chandell Nichols, also from Pine Valley. You'll notice the Pine Valley theme. I'm out in Pine Valley quite a bit, so I was able to snag them. And I saw Bryna like the other day and said, "Are you ready for your presentation?" She said, "Yes, but I'm regretting it." And I thought she was joking at first, but she didn't have a smile on her face. So thanks to all of you. Larry Goble from Williamsville. Yeah, Larry had probably the longest drive of the day, or maybe Ryan, you might compete with that one. And then Phil Jarosz from Kenton, our lovely friends. All right, so we're gonna do, as you know, I have kind of a rinky-dink blog called Coffee with a Geek where I interview educators from around the country, the world. I have a good time having conversations. So when we were talking about the TIF advisory, we thought, we've got a little gap of time. Why not do a little Coffee with a Geek segment? And we are going to do that Coffee with a Geek segment. We've got the couches, the nice, comfy, cozy chairs and couches over here. And I'm going to talk to Mike Murphy. So for those of you who don't know who Mike Murphy is, shame on you. You should know who Mike Murphy is. Mike really is a legend in technology, especially in Western New York, in this southern tier region. Mike has been with Forestville. I'm sure he can tell us when he comes down. There was a great article written by Mike about Mike in the newspaper, The Observer, and feel free to check that. I'll link that on the website. But Mike has been a stalwart in technology for years and has kind of seen it all. And he's just, he has a lot of wisdom. And I thought, he's retiring this year, and I thought, before he goes, we really should tap into his experience level, even just a little bit. And that's what I'm gonna do now. So we're gonna bring Mike from atop the stage. Oh, there he is. So Mike, come on up. We'll get us mic'd up, and I'm going to ask Mike just 3 questions and hopefully kind of dig into his amazing experience level. And during the breaks, please feel free to just wish Mike a happy retirement. And if you have any questions, this is the guy to go to. He knows it all. He's seen it all. And so, without further ado, here is Mike Murphy, and we're going to have a little conversation. Live?
You get the big chair. Nice big chair. Ah, wow. I'm never up here. This is weird.
Isn't it?
Wow.
I know, the bright lights. I don't know.
Oh, cool.
So, Mike, I think, how many years have you been in?
I've been working at this school for 26 years, but I started actually as an Erie 2 BOCES tech assistant back in '96, and working here 2 days a week, in Springville 3 days a week. And I did that till '99, and then in '99, this school district made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So, because I love Springville so much, and I still do. So I don't know if my friends from Springville are here today. I didn't see Ben or Joanne, but yeah. So then in '99, I became full-time, and been here ever since.
So 30-some years in that tech?
26.
26.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, when you first started, what was the technology like?
Nothing.
The beginning.
Nothing. And that's why they brought me on. It's so funny because, and I doubt anybody's here is as old as I am, but it's Mike, you're the exception. But he'll be able to relate to this. When I first came, they had basically just the business office, and a few of the offices had a PC, and there was one computer in the library on the internet on a dial-up modem, and there was one computer lab that had just some real generic PCs that weren't hooked up to anything.
So
And they
Commodore
just
64s, or?
No, it was a little bit past that.
Okay.
You know, so
the Tandy.
yeah, and over at Springville, it was they did have the Apple IIGSs.
Okay,
Yeah.
I remember those.
So yeah, and the little Mac Minis, I think so. So yeah, so when I first started, yeah, one computer in the library in the corner. The jack is still there in the wall, and where it's plugged in, and one on the internet. But the school district was seeing that there, and I was on the tech committee too, and I think that helped me get in the door maybe. But I was on the parent tech committee that talked about, you know, the comings, you know, the future of what was going to be coming. And the district realized that, and they really had nobody on staff here that could fill, you know, the needs to take care of the tech and to keep things moving forward.
So with all of that change that you saw throughout the years, you know, what were kind of your biggest challenges with technology? I know this is a big question,
Yeah.
and hopefully you can maybe bring it into focus a little bit. What were your biggest challenges, and what were your biggest successes
Oh
over the
gosh,
years?
26 years of that. But
Yeah.
So
Big question.
yeah, it is. As with every single school district, the biggest challenge is always funding. And you know, my wish list is always bigger than the funds that are available for the most part. But you know, we got things rolling, and I was able to keep things, you know, the funds coming in by showing the benefits of it. You know, we actually, anything we bought, we made sure that it was being used, you know, really fully. And it was funny because I had this schedule of, you know, when PCs get a certain age, we just, you know, keep rotating and cycle through. And I had this really neat cycle going on. And then if everybody remembers back in 2000s when the state really clamped down and took all of our money away, they took all of my money away. And it was like everything came to a screeching halt, and that just threw everything into a tizzy. But we managed, we got through that and started back up again, and then COVID hit. Wes, if you can hit, you see where it says bell, hit the button for off on that. And then it just, you know, so the funds, and then COVID hit, and then we got cut. I mean, actually, it was a month before COVID hit because we had other things happening. So we went 2 years with no funding, and now, of course, the floodgates opened here, ESSER and ARP, and, you know, here you got to spend $10,000 in the next week, and it's like, geez, you know, I like to think about it for a little bit. Yeah. So funding has been the biggest thing. But, you know, other, you know, challenges-wise, you know, that's really, I've had so much good support here, and I'm so grateful that the Board of Education, my administrators, and the teachers here have been so good, have treated me so well, and they, you know, I have a new idea, I want to try something new, you know, I'll go into a teacher's room and say, here, I want you to use this, and they would be always open to doing that. And there was just never any issues with getting things going with the teachers and trying new things out with them. And we always would pilot something, you know, I'd always try it with this teacher. If it worked well, then we'd move on to, you know, getting it into all the other classrooms. But it
sounds like a successful model.
Yeah, it worked really well. And I'll tell you the successes. I mean, we went from, you know, having, you know, getting every teacher a computer on their desk. If you read the newspaper article, that was a huge thing. Teachers didn't have computers. And it was neat. I got a picture somewhere of the semi-truck with all the Dell computers in it. We were so excited that I could get every teacher a computer back in the 90s, 98 probably it was. And that was really cool. And then just working with the teachers on all the things, you know, first of all, we did the electronic grade books, and then the PowerPoint, and, you know, all the stuff they could use it for in their classrooms. So that was really cool. And then just, you know, as the years went on, you know, any of the better new things. Like the other thing we did was changing out our 27-inch TVs for projectors. So in this building, we went with a model of a projector screen and super sound system and document camera. And at the elementary building, we went with smart boards. And that was a huge game changer as well. That was so cool. And so that was huge. But for my life, the biggest thing was in 2009 when we opened this facility. And, you know, this is my playground. This is where I get to come and play. And I was so grateful to the administrators for letting me work directly with the architects and to design this space. and to put in what I thought was best. And a team of us went around different schools, went to Castadega, different schools that had auditoriums. We'd never had an auditorium before. All of our concerts were always at the elementary gym. So this gym was way too big for the acoustics, so we went to the elementary school. Set up, tear down, set up, tear down. But I love it. I was a music major in college, actually. So I loved the arts, and this was just, a dream of mine. And it's funny because in 2005, when they said, okay, we're going to start another capital project because we need to upgrade our sewer plant, I heard capital project, and I said, this is it. It's time. Let's put in a thing for the auditorium. And it was a fight. The people did not want this, the community. They said, what's it got to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic? And we just kept going over, had meetings and meetings, and it actually got voted down the first time on the capital project. And it wasn't until the state came out with some extra monies to where it was a zero impact for the taxpayers that it finally squeaked through. So, but yeah, guess who really loves it now? The community. They love it. Oh, this is awesome. We should have had this a long time ago. Yeah, we know. We tried to tell you, but we do. We love having a lot of community events in here, and the students, musicals, concerts, lots of concerts. And so yeah, so this is probably, with all the technology and all the awesome things we do, this is probably my most proudest accomplishment is this auditorium.
It's amazing. It's gorgeous. Yeah, well done. So as you go off into retirement, you've seen so much. You've seen the changes. What are you seeing the trends going forward?
Oh gosh.
I know.
And that's why I'm getting out of here, because I can't handle it anymore. It is. Everybody here knows. You all know about the things of where the instructional integration is so important now. It used to be back when I teach a teacher how to use Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, and as you know, as we'll see today, it's like proof. It's so much more than that. And I'm really a nuts and bolts guy. I'm a civil service employee, actually. I'm not a teacher, but I do the nuts and bolts. And it was so important. And I seen this change happening years ago, of course, but then when COVID hit, that put the brakes on, because I was pitching to get a tech integrator in here, and because it was just me. It was a one-man show for 26 years. And I seen the writing on the wall, but COVID hit. It's like, okay, put the brakes on. But then it's like, okay, it's time to retire. I said, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to split this off. We need to get a tech integration specialist and a nuts and bolts person, and that's what we did. So where it's going is that you need that person. We need all these people out there in the schools that can help guide the teachers, that can help come up with a plan of what's going to be the best for instructional needs in that school, what's going to spark the kids' learning, all those things that, just allows you to have the students thrive, really. That's what it's all about. It's all about the students, and we all know that. It's about the students and what can we do to make their life here better and to make their lives better. So.
Round of applause for that.
No.
Students.
It's true. You can buy all the computers and panels and everything in the world, but if you don't have the people in the school to train the teachers, to make sure the teachers are comfortable and doing the great things with this equipment, that's what counts. And I was losing that over the last few years. So I'm excited. We're bringing on, if you didn't heard yet, Mrs. Press. Melissa Press was our middle school guidance counselor, and she's always been a great friend of mine and working with me in technology, and she's also our DDC, district data coordinator anyway, so it's kind of a natural fit just to bring her on. And so she's actually started about a month ago, and she's starting to learn all the different systems and starting to work with the teachers already. And we also just yesterday got our final approval. We're going to be bringing Andy in for 2 days a week as well, so that's pretty cool. So
looking forward to it.
Good, this school really running with some good integration.
Great. All right, last question. What are you going to do with your retirement?
Yes. Yeah. Not wake up at 6 in the morning. That's number one.
Good.
Now, my wife and I, we've been camping people forever, and we've been graduating from the tent to a little camper, a little bigger, and now we've got this monster fifth wheel and a big truck, and we're gonna head south. We love New York State, the summers up here, and we got family up here and friends, so we're gonna spend our summers still in Western New York. But I'll tell you, when November hits, we're heading south. So we're going to spend the first year down south mainly.
So in the camper?
Yeah. Oh yeah, full-timing. That's what
nice.
they call full-time RVing. So we're going to be living in our camper. It's very comfortable. And we're going to be, and then next year, we're going across country. You know, we're going to see this great country, all the different states, as many as we can hit. And I'm so looking forward to that.
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
Yep.
Well, Mike, it's a career that you did a lot of good over the years. And,
Yeah. Well, let me tell you though, I have been, you know, the meetings, the tech consortium meetings that we go to, and these meetings, I have learned so much from all these people. Let me tell you, I didn't, you know, you don't learn these things, you know, you pick up all these gems all over the place, and every one of you has given me a gem somewhere. And that's what you and I've built my career on, is picking up these little pieces here and there and implementing them and sparking my, you know, enthusiasm. So it's really you guys just coming together and meeting and getting that networking, and that's I think key to anybody that gets into this profession, is that networking and just hearing what other people are doing. So I really appreciate everybody that's given me help over the years, and there's been plenty of that, trust me, it's definite.
Great. Well, thank you. And a round of applause for Mike Murphy, everybody.
All right, thank you very much, sir. This couch is so old. In fact, it's a sleeper sofa. People have said you probably use it to sleep here over here. Felt like
The comfy couch.
All right.
I'm going to give you this. All right, I believe Mike Drezek is going to come up and introduce our first speaker.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to Tif Talks. We're going to kick off our first speaker of the evening after that wonderful coffee with the Geek Live. Thank you, Mike and Andy. We have Larry Goble, a technology integrator from Williamsville Central School District. This is Larry's 15th year in education, his 7th as a tech integrator. He's at Casey Middle School. Larry it really needs no introduction. If you can tell by the website, it's pretty light. But when you get to know Larry, he's just making waves and doing some awesome stuff out there. And if you were ever going to take somebody to a Buffalo Bills wildcard game against the New England Patriots for that perfect game in January of 2022, Larry would be the guy that you would bring. So as Larry's getting started here, this is his first Tif Talk. So I know he's got a talk called Sound Bites or Sound System. And we were trying to debate at our TIF advisory if this was bite with an I or a Y. So we are going to find out exactly why this talk is all about sound bites or sound systems. So everybody please welcome Larry Goble.
Try to do this without paper, but just as my security blanket, I'm going to put it there. All right, sound bites or sound systems. And the tagline is important. It's going to inform us a little bit because I want us to think about our own practice. I want to think about the teachers that we work with, either as colleagues that come to you and ask for help, or guidance, or wisdom, or maybe you are a tech integrator and you've taken on, at least part of your practice, a coaching role, right? As there's so many times that I appear in a classroom, and I work a lot of one-on-one with teachers during their planning times. And how are you? You know, we don't launch right into, here's what you got to do, here's what you need to know, how are you? And then you might get 20 minutes down the road on how they are, right? And so we have to kind of think about that as we want, you know, before we get to our sound bites or our sound systems. And so I'm gonna get right to kind of an illustration so I can kind of help frame this a little better. Tech tips and Twitter hits versus what's your 5? And so there's a couple of stories behind this. How many of you raise your hands, send out tech tips monthly, weekly, daily, right? During the pandemic, I kind of broke my rule. My rule was I send out one building-wide email a week. During the pandemic, every morning there were tech tips. At the beginning, every morning. People are just figuring out how to do this thing. And then Twitter hits, right? Where was I learning stuff? Twitter, I need it now, I need it today, I need people to know it now, and so that we can get this done, because there's actually students showing up in this, and in Williamsville we were doing this hybrid learning where the kids were live from home and they were live in front of you. It was very complicated. We needed solutions now. But it's not sustainable. When I got to my end of the year evaluation, I put the number of steps I walked during the first few months of the pandemic, just to hallway, classroom to classroom, because it needed to happen, or else students weren't going to learn. It just wasn't sustainable. And so as you get that, if I threw out a tech tip, I would just link to my master document. That master document got to be 30 pages of all the things people needed to know to actually run an effective, efficient, problem-free classroom. And if I hit on something that somebody needed to know in that moment, really happy. They were really happy. But what I came to find out, kind of like when you tweet something out and somebody comments on it, they like it, and maybe even get retweeted. Maybe even it blows up and some blog or podcast calls you, right? You get this it's like a dopamine injectable, right? It's like, whoo, that's good. We like these little tech tips. We like these sound bites. They really work. But they're not as good as a sound system, okay? So what's your 5? And I'll go to the next slide. This is kind of the start of thinking about what a system is, right? Because in the middle of the pandemic, when people were freaking out, and then I would give them tech tip after tech tip after tech tip, a possible tool you could use. I want to throw Pear Deck out at you. Here's how you run good breakout rooms. Here's a better way to use Kahoot. Whatever it is. Can you do Quizlet Live with your hybrid situation? Right? People were like, whoa, yes, no, oh my God, I can't do it all. So I just started asking people, listen, ignore my emails if you can. If you got it, ignore my emails. I give you permission. And so I started just asking, before you ignore my emails, let me ask you, what's your 5? And you can see what people came up with. People had an option to use Zoom or Meet in our district. And I needed, how are you presenting content? Right? How are you checking for understanding? How are you evaluating? What's kind of like your lesson format or your energy changer? So just if you get to 5, you can stop. You don't have to do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Even if they look cool, you don't have to, right? Because there was no capacity. So we started to build a system, a personal system. What's your personal system of teaching in this pandemic era? So what's your 5? So you got a little bit, you see that we kind of, as techie type people, we might live on that adrenaline, right? We might live on that adrenaline of a soundbite. We get it. We automatically incorporate it, right? If I tell people that, hey, did you know you can right-click next to all of your tabs and bookmark it into the same folder? That's a soundbite. I could go a little further and say, hey, teacher who travels to 3 buildings and shares 5 different classrooms. Hey, did you know that you can then right-click on that bookmark folder and open up all those tabs at the same time so your lesson is ready? They're like, oh, right? Get that dopamine injectable. It hits them right in the right place. But, most of you knew that already. It didn't hit, that dopamine didn't really work for you right now. You already know that tech tip. And so when I'm throwing out a tech tip, right, I can either be jazzed about it, okay, or I can be too overwhelmed to hear it, or I knew that. So where are you? How are you feeling today? Are you overwhelmed to the point that another tech tip is just going to bounce off you? Right? Or are you coming into today, I'm eager to learn. I'm ready. And that might change depending on your situation, right? So we have a lot of things coming at us. Personally, right? I got some things going on. I have some big projects going on at school, right? End of year activities, of course. I had this Tif Talk. My daughter crashed her car, totaled it for the second time. Our other car popped a tire, so we had to get that one in. We're down to one car, had to do that. An employee evaluation last Friday. There's a lot of things. Gio will even tell you, I crashed WeVideo in our district, and everybody's stuff got, discombobulated. Wow, that was fun. It is my uncle's memorial service right now, right now. So I was like, man, I got some things going on. I sent my wife. It's going to be fine. So you have some things. And then we have this historical stuff in education. Things that come at us in education. These little tidbits, these flashes, these sound bites. They're so good. I want to do them all. How am I going to manage to do all of these good things that seem so attractive to us? Right? We have to put them into perspective. Every time something comes up, oh, wow, community circles, that's good. SEL, that sounds, kids need to know how much you care. You need to check in with students before they're ready to learn. I need to make sure that I am engaged. But at some point, you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Even us high-capacity, tech-interested people. And this isn't, I'm not even layering on, I know I used my pandemic example, but I'm not even layering on the complications of COVID, because what we saw in this NEA Today article was that this was happening before the pandemic in teaching. This was happening before the pandemic. That other article that I linked there, it's kind of a research-based thing, and that's where that graphic comes from, all of the survey data they got. One of the things that they said is, and we just heard it in Coffee with a Geek, about that acceleration of technology integration and how teachers are dealing with it, with stress and anxiety. Okay? And so when we are thinking about integrating technology, I'm going to try to give us a framework here. Teachers want to do a good job. Teachers want to do a good job. Are they at a place where they need a tech tip? Are they at a place where they need a sound system? Are they at a place where they just want you to ask how they are? All right? And so we're raring to go. We're like a fire hose. This is my 7th year doing this. I have a lot of stuff I can teach a new teacher. There's a lot of stuff. I cannot give it to them the first day, right? I cannot give it to them the first day. They could be ready for a drip. So you are the conduit. So think of it in this metaphor. You're the conduit. You got a lot of water pressure going. But you have to let them have their hand on the handle and control the flow, right? And when I send out a soundbite, okay, I may teach them, I may feed them for a day. I may hit them in the right place at the right moment. But a lot of times I'm doing that work. I'm sending out those sound bites, and it may not resonate with 80, 90, 99.9% of people. I don't know. I think they're great, right? But I don't know what people know. I don't know what they need all the time, right? So sound bites are great. I love them, and I love when I find where it really helps somebody. But I really want to work towards teaching them how to fish themselves, right? And that's where the sound system. So we're not bashing sound bites. I love them as much as anybody else, right? But I want to find sound systems, okay? So, oh shoot, I changed this slide, but we'll go on. All right, so how can I improve my end-of-lesson checks for understanding? I currently use half slips of paper. Okay, all right. How about use Padlet? I'll send you a link. That's a soundbite, right? The teacher may know Padlet, right? I'm going to assume that, or they can, I send them the tutorial. I don't make the tutorials anymore. The programs change too fast. I try to find some famous blogger that keeps their stuff updated and send people that link, right? So I've given them a soundbite. It's a good solution. They are no longer jostling 100 half sheets of paper at their kids' soccer practice trying to give the students some feedback. So if you imagine an ELA teacher trying to say, hey, we're going to talk about introductory sentences, and we need to have solid introductory sentences, and they have a fantastic lesson, and then they do their half sheets of paper, and the teacher are they good? How can I teach this student? How can I differentiate to their half sheet of paper? Well, I better fill something. I better comment on 120 students while I'm going to the grocery store and sitting in my kid's soccer practice. How well does that work? It doesn't. It doesn't happen, right? They get to the glass of wine earlier than they thought, and the sheets of paper do not give feedback on that, right? And so the Padlet is the same thing, right? We're digitizing it. They don't have to bring the half sheets of paper, but they still have to kind of prop up the Chromebook or their laptop and try to, they can comment on that. It's still not going to work. It is maybe elevating it one step in the SAMR feedback system, but what we really want to do is find a sound system, okay? And a sound system always involves a conversation. A soundbite I send out. I send out to the Twitterverse. I send out to my all-building email. I hope it lands. I hope it's good. But a sound system always is about a conversation on what's going on in that student's classroom, or that teacher's classroom, and how we can help. So when you talk about Padlet, I love Padlet, right? Because kids are visual these days. They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, right? When I first started teaching, there's a lot of texting going on, but they weren't doing the photos yet. Now we have a new generation. The millennials are gone, we're in Gen Z, and they're using all photos. So Padlet is a very visual, good learning. It's almost like social learning, right? Visual learning. And so we want to use Padlets. But instead, for the teacher, I want them to stress less. I don't want them juggling a Padlet or the pieces of paper at their kid's soccer game. I want to say, hey, have the kids write their introductory sentences on Padlet, and then go home. The next day, that bell ringer assignment is for the students to get reminded, maybe the three top things that a strong introductory sentence should have on the board, and the kids are going to review that Padlet and heart 3 of them. What are the top 3 strongest ones that you read from your class? Now, before, the students saw their introductory sentence, and they may have seen the teacher's example. That's it. Now the students are doing higher level compare and contrast. They're looking at the criteria. They're having to do higher level thinking in voting. Then the teacher has a great conversation with the class after that voting is done, and they say, hey, today's lesson, we're going to learn how to write strong introductory paragraphs. And they start the same lesson all over. And how about this for scaffolding and differentiating? You say, hey, kids, you can either improve your own, or you can steal one of the top 3 and start your introductory paragraph. Wouldn't that be cool? Doesn't that sound like a better system? The stress is off the teacher a little bit. The learning is on the students. So that's what we're talking about when we're trying to get sound bites and sound systems. So what's an easy way to help my students study their spelling words? First of all, my sound bite is right-click, changed it to the right word, right? That's how you change words that are spelled incorrectly. But a teacher wants Quizlet, that's a sound bite. A better system, hey, did we ever think to teach kids how to use Quizlet properly? Right? And how you have a system to lead them down to the answer. I like to use more collective learning strategies. Do you have any ideas? TPS, right? That is not a report from Office Space, right? That's think, pair, share. But we have these things called Hedgehog protocols. People are creating systems for us. Go steal them and use them repeatedly and have students use better collaborative. And my bonus is what if your district trained every sub in using 4 edu protocols and teachers left plans for Iron Chef, Cyber Sandwich, and Frere slides? Ooh, wouldn't that be cool? Sound bite. So in conclusion, right, I love a dopamine injection as much as the next guy, but I really think it is useful for teachers to reduce stress and to improve learning if we have a conversation and figure out a sound system that is going to work for that teacher. Enjoy your life.
Okay, so in between our setup here, between the next speaker, we have what are known as Spark Talks. So these are just 5-minute quick talks, and our first Spark Talk speaker is Aimee Bloom.
What's on? Okay, can you hear me? Perfect. Okay, so this is the time where I'm going to ask you to take out your cell phones. I have about a 5-minute presentation. I'm going to try to dive in as quick as possible. Canva is one of my ultimate favorites, but what I'm going to show you today is how you can use Canva in different ways. And the first one we're going to look at is Canva Live. Canva Live is an awesome back channel built right into Canva. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present it in presenter view. This is a great way for you to interact with your students. It's forward-facing. What I would recommend, if you're doing this with your students, is to do the presenter view. That way, any comments or questions that come in are just facing you. You can execute Canva Live in typical presenter mode, but please know if you're projecting on a screen, your classmates will be able to see the comments that are being made. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in presenter view. And it's also great if you have any notes that you're taking, Carrie. And if you didn't know, you can add music into the mix. Okay, so this is the view that your students would see. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And I'm now going to execute the Canva Live session. And what you are going to do is you're just going to go to canva.live on your cell phones. And what this does now is make this a live session. So there should be a code that goes with this. So as I ended the session, excuse me one moment, let me do that again. There we go. There we go, there's the code. So if you want to go ahead and enter the code 720367, you are now able to ask me questions. You can also send me emojis, you can interact with just me. Anything you send me will not be shown to the other peers or classmates in your class. So if you're sending me any messages, please take it easy, I'm sensitive. A couple other things as you're going through and sending me messages, and I'll pop back over to that screen in a moment. There's about 7 tips in here that you may or may not be aware of Canva. If you're unfamiliar with Canva, please navigate to that More section. They have embedded GIFs. They also have Pixon cartoons, as well as the ability to draw. So if you want to turn up Canva to that next level, you can go ahead and do that. Let's see if we have any comments in. Let's take a show what it looks like on the other end. And you'll see that there are questions coming into me on this end. Again, if you do this in just typical presenter view, these comments will be displayed for everybody. So I guess it depends how much you trust your students to send those comments in. All right, next up to bat here. There we go. Is the video creation. Did you know built right in Canva? There are video creations. So if you look within Canva, video TikTok, they will give you it's cell phone video footage that your students can go in and edit and manipulate. Now I'm going to stop this presentation just for a moment just so I can show you how that works and looks on this end. Okay, so on this end, you simply would go to Uploads after you go through and search for your template. So you can go and look up TikTok video. And they'll give you a variety of templates for videos, and then your students can go ahead and embed their own video, and that's under Upload. So they can go in and record their videos and add their videos to the already pre-made template. So what a great way to utilize and meet them where they are by using videos that could bring to life their concepts. So, you know, we all lived through that TikTok challenge. You can always have them create their own TikTok challenge and how to be better citizens to one another. So that's one way that you can use the video, embedding the video right into Canva. One of my personal favorites is embedding the links. I'm not sure how far you were able to dive into embedding these links, but a couple of these are links that I embedded in here is a great way for you to interact with your students. So for example, I embedded a Padlet right into my Canva. That way my students can contribute in that Canva. So it's another way for you to interact. Nearpod embeds right in, which is pretty cool. There are some other websites that don't do it as fluidly as I would like. I did try Miroboard. Miroboard was not one of the ones that liked it. But everybody's personal favorite, Wakelet. You can embed Wakelet right into Canva. Students can interact with your Wakelet. They can contribute to your Wakelet. That way you're in one safe place and you keep everybody on the same page. Lastly, I already showed you Canva Live. Okay, so you also have the ability to record your presentations as you're giving them. So in the drop-down menu where it says present, there's a present and record option for you to have your students. So that's a great way if you're with your students in class, hopefully we're gonna stay that way, for you to record your lessons for perhaps the students who are absent that day. So you don't have to do that twice. And lastly, what I love as an added feature is the insights. So now built right into Canva are insights. You could tell how many people have viewed your live link in Canva, which is great for the student side. So say you have students creating products. For example, if you have an esports team and they want to advertise their esports team to have them come and watch them play, you now have statistics on how many times your Canva was viewed. So these are just a couple of tips and tricks along the way for Canva. If you have any questions on the live, I'll make sure to get to you and answer those. So thank you very much. I also have the distinct pleasure to introduce two fabulous speakers. So give me one moment. Let me make sure I log out of here. Okay, so we have two amazing ladies coming to the stage right now from Pine Valley Central School District, and I have a little cheat sheet because their careers are absolutely amazing. Bryna, Moritz, and Carrie Davenport. If you want to come on up and get all ready and situated, then I'll introduce you as you are getting ready. All right, so Bryna is the superintendent of Pine Valley Central School District. She's a former elementary and high school principal, special education director, curriculum coordinator, chief information officer, and elementary teacher. Perfect, no, you're good. And Carrie Davenport. She's the director of special education and curriculum, data protection officer, grant writer, principal on demand, and when needed, janitor. Did you add that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was adding all the things that aren't a principal, being joking.
Yeah. Carrie comes to us as a director of technology, chief information officer, E&L teacher, SWD teacher, classroom teacher, literacy coach, instructional coach, and core technology teacher, and I did that all in one breath. So welcome to the stage, Carrie and Bryna.
All right. Andy wants us up top. We were trying to go casual.
Okay, is this on? Yeah. So our presentation today is going to be a little unique. As we were preparing for this, I kept saying to Carrie, what are we going to say to this group of people? When I was a fourth grade teacher, I would have felt very, very prepared to stand up here and talk to all of you about technology in the classroom. But now I'm so far removed from that role and more in a supporting role that our view and our use of technology has evolved significantly.
Just a little bit.
So we wanted to really quick just get a sense of who's in front of us. If you are a teacher, would you mind raising your hand?
Woohoo.
Awesome. Kudos to all of you. A technology person?
In any capacity.
Yep. Future administrator? It's awesome. You should all do it. It's great. Okay.
Especially during a pandemic.
Yeah. And any administrators currently? Sarah, get your hand up. Thank you. Thank you. So we want to start by you got our professional bio and kind of give some background on why we're talking about surviving with technology. And the reason we're talking about this is our stories are a little bit interesting. I did multiple roles. I'm assuming most of you are from smaller districts, maybe not all, but you end up wearing a lot of hats. And when I switched to Pine Valley as the superintendent, I was superintendent for 4 months, and then the pandemic hit. I also am a mom of 2, and one of them is 11 months old. I have a partner that is split between 2 locations. He and I go back and forth. And so I'm a single mom about 50% of the time and a superintendent, which is a lot. So today is going to be our attempt to give you how we use technology to make it so we can not only survive in our lives and our roles, but also thrive and continue to grow as educators and leaders. And I will say that as we talk about this, I hope it's relevant to you, because as a 4th grade teacher, I spent a lot of time focused on teaching technology, giving kids those tools, and focused on all that legwork that had to happen so that the technology was not the focus of my lessons, but rather the driving vehicle. In this role, we did a lot of conversation around, I approach it very differently. Now, technology has to be something that supports my life and my ability as a leader to get things done. And if it doesn't support, I abandon quickly and ruthlessly. I do not keep trying these tools. So we are in a different lane than some of you are. I apologize if it doesn't relate.
And then on my side of the personal side, so you heard my slew of all of the titles that I currently have and have had, but I thought the pandemic, with the help of Bryna, was a great time to adopt a dog. So I became a dog mom, and then I became a second dog mom, and then the pandemic's kind of shifted away, and now I have 2 puppies and wearing a bazillion hats. And at the same time, we're balancing a pandemic, and I needed to use technology because on a personal side, my dad went through open heart surgery and was in Rochester at a time where it was like one person could be the person in the hospital. So of course, as the oldest sibling of many, I became that person and had to balance using technology to work remotely and run CSE meetings from a living room of a friend's house or, in my car outside of a hospital. So it became this, how can I help keep things going forward and not just become stagnant in our jobs and our positions in our district while working through a lot of different hats.
So the key things we're going to talk about today, we have a few different topics we want to touch on, but just on the theme of making sure technology is supporting, I'm sure all of you use your calendar. If you are considering being an administrator and moving into that realm, this is something I had to learn as I moved up. I was a notepad girl, and very quickly I realized I wasn't making it to any meetings or doing what I was supposed to do. So now I get up in the morning and I go where my calendar tells me to go, and that helps me survive. I don't drink water. Some days I don't eat lunch. So my partner actually got me one of those fun water bottles that flashes at you. So if you don't have one of those, it's really frustrating and annoying, but it does make me drink more
It's
water.
really great in a meeting when it starts flashing on the table and we're like, hey, drink your water.
And we've started to use technology as my number one source for professional learning and for connecting with our team. We are a team that is very digital, and we are connected all the time because of it. So those are my key how it helps us survive tools. On the other hand, I wanted to share with all of you, especially for the tech people in the room, there might be technology you love. If you are working with an administrator that refuses to jump on, please give them a little grace. That has been a learning curve for me. I've had to go from being the girl that always said, yes, I'm going to do that, to realizing what works for me. I had an Apple Watch, loved my Apple Watch as a principal. As a superintendent, it distracts me so much, and that buzz on my wrist had me borderline twitching for a while. So I don't wear an Apple Watch anymore. I figure if someone needs me, they're going to call me, or someone's going to find me in my office or out in the building. So there is a line there, so please give us a little grace. In talking to our team, we had another administrator that said part of her survival is she refuses to put email on her phone. This is a very responsive administrator. She's amazing. We love her. But she knows that mentally, if she puts email on her phone, she will not be as strong of a leader because she can't check out. So we all have our things we push back on, and we've learned that we have to do that in order to use tech the way we want to use it, which is to survive and thrive.
So with using technology to support you and not becoming another thing that you need to navigate and learn, we've learned that there are things that work for us and things that don't. We read an article, and there was this new platform coming out. It was an app aimed towards administrators and educators with current topics. I don't even know what the app's name is at this point, because her and I were like, we're jumping on this the day it's alive. We get in, and it just didn't make sense. It was a lot of people chiming in on a lot of topics, and it didn't feel organized. And I went to her at one of our meetings. I was like, I'm aborting this app. I know we said we were going to give it a try before we maybe trickled it out to people. I can't handle this. I can't add another pop-up notification. I even turned the notifications off, but then was so overwhelmed by what I walked into, and she was like, yeah, it's not going well for me. So we aborted, didn't share it with everybody. And that we had to feel okay with that. I couldn't tell you. Last night I spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out what the app name was. Couldn't find it. But at the same time, I came from an Apple school and transitioned to a Dell school about 4 years ago.
I did as well, not well though.
Not well at all.
It did not go well.
I gave my Dell a good 3 months try, and then I found, and Bryna found the same thing, I was spending so much time navigating different platforms that I was not as productive as if I could have just had my Mac. So I kind of came into district. At that point, I was director of instructional technology. I went, someone save me. I need a Mac. We're finding budget for this. Now, I am an adjunct at SUNY Fredonia, so I have to navigate Dell in some aspects of life. But when it comes to being productive and checking things off my list, I know I need to be fluent in both programs, but I couldn't handle the Apple or the Mac, I couldn't handle the Dell as my primary, and I had to learn that that was okay. And so then, fast forward to a year later, Bryna joins our team, and she gave it more time than I did. I'll give you this.
I made it 2 months, and that was the end. I spent one day working on my home computer, and I went back, and our tech person at the time was less than thrilled. But I finally looked at him, and I went, listen, I hate to put it in these terms, but my salary is taxpayer dollars, and I can't spend 3 hours trying to navigate the tech so I can get my job done. I need an Apple. I'm not advocating that view for students. We feel differently about students. They need to learn on multiple platforms, and we do feel differently.
But what our experiences did lead us to is realizing that in order for our kids to be college and career ready, we also need to give them opportunities on multiple platforms. Because right now we're a little bit older, a little bit more set in our habits and our knowledge, and I am definitely one platform preferred to the other, but I got that way by experiencing both. And so we've made a conscious effort over the last few years to make sure that we have both Dell and Apple products in different capacities based on different needs to help expose our students to that. Is it a little bit more of a tech lift? Yes. Is it a little bit more of an ordering nightmare? Yes. Thank you, ECF, for funding some of that. And some of you are chuckling as you've already done those applications. So we're trying to make sure we stay in both lanes.
We're also letting staff, we don't want to force them to be on one platform. We want kids exposed to both, and we're pretty divided at PV. So we are having staff select what platform they want to work on now, so that we're not forcing them into a lane.
So as our replacement cycle just went up in flames, as they come due, and some of you can sympathize with that, we make sure to do the survey and keep a pulse of who wants what. And what we're finding is then people are like, ooh, that kind of looks fun. And that's when we utilize our BOCES support like Andy Wheelock to help with that tech integration piece on the different platforms.
So this is our trick that no one can out me on. I am one of the most well-read superintendents. However, I have not read a book in 2-3 years maybe, because I listen to audiobooks and I listen to podcasts, and that is the only way I can survive. If someone sends me a book, I immediately go, okay, I gotta try to get that on an audiobook. The other day I was sweeping out, remember, single mom 50% of the time and a superintendent. I was sweeping out my garage at 4 a.m. while listening to an audiobook. Like, this is life right now. So if you are looking into ways to get that professional learning done, that would be my biggest tip for you. When I'm driving, I have an audiobook on. Try to find ways for that technology to keep you learning. There's also podcasts. Little side note, if you haven't experienced SmartLess yet, I highly recommend it on podcasts, but for your, easy listening, it's not educational.
Personal plug.
Yeah, my little personal plug. That's my guilty pleasure. But I use podcasts to stay up on the news. I listen to pretty much anything that comes up on Planet Money, and try to really stay in touch by using those platforms. Along with New York Times app, that's my favorite. So anything you can do to get those short little plugs. I like that the first presenter talked about those little bite-sized chunks. That's what works for most of our lives at this point. So,
and also looking at it, how can you then turn your professional development to kind of shift into that, making sure that we're utilizing those digital platforms and podcasting, not only listening to podcasts, but developing podcasts and working with teachers to do that. Is another way that we're kind of embedding that technology that is working for us and helping us work smarter and not harder, but at the same time supporting our teachers in their learning.
So this is my one tip if you are, again, I hope all of you will someday consider an administrative role. It really is a great job, but you learn as you're doing it. So one of the things that I learned after we were well into this that I should have done as the leader, and now we just have established it later on and it works, is we're connected as a team and learning as a team, but with the pandemic, we accomplished a lot. So I got hired, and then I was there and we started working on student achievement. We started working on a million different pieces. We also had reasons to hire quite a few new administrators in the district due to different circumstances. But because of that, we had a lot of change. And then the pandemic hit, and we were all learning and growing as a team. And in that learning, it became a little bit of a digital frenzy, we'll say, where I felt like I was being connected at all times, morning, noon, and night to the team. We were Zooming at 9 o'clock at night. We were texting. We had every platform going. I'd be checking my email, and I got beyond overwhelmed. And I thought, I can't survive this job, and neither can they. So we very quickly started to establish norms on our platforms as a team. And if I were recommending to any of you, even if you're leading kids, not so much, but if you're...
No, but on Remind, making sure you set those office hours, so if you're using communication platforms that parents aren't messaging you at 11 p.m. at night. It may seem convenient and worthy in the beginning, but you have to look at your mental health and the long-term sustainability of those 11 p.m. conversations with parents and kids, depending on what level you teach.
And if you are a tech individual, I highly recommend doing this because you deserve a break too. I know that our tech team is so connected that I regularly, the one day she was off and I didn't even realize she was off, and she didn't respond right away, and she is a respond in 5 seconds flat kind of girl. And I went, "Are you off today?" And she goes, "Yeah, but no problem, I'm firing up my computer." And I said, "No, you're not. This can wait. Just because I can reach you doesn't mean you need to answer me right now. Take the break." But the thing that we learned, and what I learned, is set up those protocols for which platforms you're going to use for which things with your kids and with your team, because we now have a really nice method for how we're going to communicate. If I'm going to send them professional learning, it's going to be through Twitter, or frankly, sorry to everyone that is trying to convert us, I like to cut out the article and write all over it and hand it to administrators. I haven't moved off of that yet. But so those are my number one ways to share an article. Text messages, the team knows if you need something urgent, you send out an SOS in our text thread. And if there's dialogue for a while, they've learned I might be giving a bottle to an infant and I'm gonna miss whatever that first thing was, so they better message me on the side in a separate lane if they've now gone off to talking about where
Our
Carrie walks her dog. Yeah. Then I'm not gonna catch whatever they wrote at the beginning. But then we use OneNote for our admin agenda. We use email.
Which was a growing learning experience for Bryna. This is an area where she had
it.
a growth mindset, and I loved it.
I'm a Google girl. I'm trying. I haven't aborted that yet. I know a lot of people are office. I'm trying. We've been doing it. I'm getting better. But then we use email for something that can be more of a 24-hour turnaround. So I know that it seems like you shouldn't explicitly state that, but the thing that happens when you're busy is you start not thinking about everybody else on the team, and it just becomes I had to answer emails rapid fire and text messages rapid fire, and it wasn't working for us. So that would be my biggest tip.
And with those boundaries, we really, like the text message group, like we have each other in our text message group, but making sure you also establish those norms and expectations with your phone of friends. So Bryna has her circles, I have mine. I have in the technology circle, the special ed circle, and the curriculum circle, and then some overlap. So making sure that you have those conversations with each other and knowing that, hey, I'm going to silence my notifications because I can't handle you all after hours. That kind of a conversation.
So this is a little bit of a tangent, but we were talking about what can we give this group. And again, I don't have any amazing tech tips for you, but the one thing I will say is if you are considering jumping into admin or jumping into another role, I don't know that anybody, maybe you all know this, but just in case you don't, please know that if you're in a job search or you're going for another job, that we're going to use Twitter for good and evil. We use, and this isn't just Twitter, we use Twitter to be funny and do a little plug here because we are avid Twitter users. But I use Twitter to try to build staff morale, to try to get staff connected to other teachers and other staff for PD. Regularly, I'm sending the administrator something on Twitter that's controversial. Those are all my goods. At my former district, when I was a principal, I tweeted out about teachers all the time. And I would tweet their classroom, and it was my way of giving kudos. Every once in a while in this role I do that, but more often than not, I'm trying to get information or give information using Twitter. The way we use it for evil, though, and we use most social media platforms for evil, and please know this, this comes with a disclaimer. I'm sure most of you know this, but if you apply for a job, you're probably being stalked on social media. And I mean stalked to the nth degree, because we want to know who we're hiring before we hire. So we'll look at Twitter, and I always get a kick out of it when someone says, these opinions are not my own in their header. And kudos to all of you if you do that. But let me tell you, if you tweet everything on one side politically, you can put that in your header. We still all think you feel that side. So, which is fine, you know, put anything you want out there. But it's the truth of the game right now. So if you're trying to get hired, I recommend making sure you're committed to whatever you tweet. Also, maybe I'm old school on this. You can give me a show of hands if you think I'm right or wrong here. If you agree, let me know. If someone has 1 million tweets and there are punctuation issues, major spelling errors, it's a grammar nightmare, I always think to myself, this is not the platform. Like, this is not a text message. You are public here. So I feel grammar is important in that realm. And then the other thing I would say is, as you're considering putting these things out there on Twitter or in any realm, it is a nice way to show a little piece of yourself, and it is a nice way for us to see who you are. We do, when we're hiring, we full on stalk, sometimes more successfully than others. Carrie's not allowed to stalk anymore. She made a big mistake.
I thought I was just stalking one platform. I didn't know I was in charge of all of them, and I will never live it down. But we say that with good, but the evil side too is we tweet each other in some entertaining outfits and pieing in the face, and like, so that evil side of it is like evil, but in a good, fun, loving way. But knowing that it's all public facing, and Twitter's no longer just this, you tweet and grammar doesn't matter. It truly does, truly does.
Facebook is the same way. If your Facebook picture is from when you were 16, I would consider changing it, putting something a little bit more professional out there. And I have no idea if any of this helped any of you, but Andy asked us to do this, and frankly, our prep session, I ended up swabbing 18 pre-Kers' noses instead of prepping, so I hope you got something out of this. It was really nice to meet all of you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, everyone, I think we're going to get back at it. I'm telling you, if you didn't get one of those South Dayton Market donuts, you got to. Take one home. Just don't eat it in the car on the way. Oh, and there's a table, the yellow table over there. There's a bunch of freebies I've gotten over the years. So there's pens, stickers, all that stuff. Feel free to take 1, 2, 10, conferences. So grab a free pen. All right, we're going to have our second Spark Talk, which is from Patrick McMillan, you all know and love, from Holland, New York. Home of the Dutchman, right? So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick McMillan.
It's funny, I posted this slide on Twitter this morning and also talked with some of you during the break, and a lot of you were just like, math's not fun, and I can't believe you're presenting on this. So it sounded like there's a lot of movement in the room for wanting to learn about some fun math things. So I hope to disappoint you today. So one of the things with math is it's very easy to get into the drill of it, where it's, let's do a math worksheet, let's talk about what you got wrong, and then we're going to learn something new and then do another math worksheet the next day. So it's very easy to get into that languishing cycle of math not being an experience, but just something you have to learn because it's a state requirement. So I have 2 things for you today that will hopefully help you out, and also something you can bring back to your math teachers to help make math more of an experience where students can explore, look at some authentic examples of how they could actually use that math rather than the strangely worded math problems that they typically have on state assessments. Use some design thinking, and also use some game-based learning with math. So if you want to follow along, I'm actually going to have you do some math on the next slide. So if you haven't already, I do have a QR code on there, or you can go to bit.ly/sparkpm, and I do have that link on the next slide as well, and the QR code if you don't get it on this slide. So the first thing I want to talk about is open middle. So I want you to open up the presentation if you haven't already, and go to slide number 2. And I have linked the image on the right-hand side, so if you touch that image, you should be brought to a math activity for us to do right now. So this is the math activity that you have to do. So basically, you just have the numbers 1 through 9 on the bottom, and you have to make it an inequality. So go ahead and give that a try for a second. And again, the website was bit.ly/sparkpm if you didn't get there yet. So it's just a drag and drop activity and see what you can do. Phil, you can try while you're down there. Especially with Wordle gaining prominence, this is like your math Wordle for today. You want to figure it out in your head first, don't you, Phil? I put Phil on the spot because Phil's a former math educator. So there is a check progress button on the bottom right if you didn't see it yet. So as you're moving through and putting different numbers in, you can see how well you're doing along the way. So similar to Wordle, where you have, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it at this point, where it'll kind of color code what you got right, what you got wrong, and how to fix it. You can kind of use the design thinking process as you're working through this to guess and check and figure your way through the math problem. Now, this is in stark contrast to if I give you a worksheet that you had to work through. You're just going to go through one by one, do the math, figure out the problem. You can use your calculator to figure it out. This is an uncalculator-friendly problem, right? You can't use a calculator to do this, and it's ungoogleable. So that's probably the number one problem that I have in school right now is a lot of teachers are complaining about students using different math apps in their classroom. They can just use the math app and solve the problem. Well, we have to think around the problem and create problems that students have to use their brains to figure out, and they're not Googleable problems. If you want to go back to the presentation for me, Phil. So thank you for indulging me in trying a little math today. So I do have two links there for you, the Open Middle website and GeoGebra. So GeoGebra was the drag and drop activity we just did. If you go to the Open Middle website, which Phil will bring up now for you, they have math activities for most of the modules that you'll be going through with math, all the way from K through 12. They have Google Slides presentations that are drag and drop manipulatives that students can use in the classroom. There's also the interactive one through GeoGebra that they have. And they have printable worksheets on the right-hand side as well that have students go through design thinking. Let's try number one, try number two, try number three. So it's not, the onus isn't just on the right answer, the onus is on trying to figure out the right answer along the way. So it has that nice game-based approach for students. So that's Open Middle. And then my second part of my Spark Talk, I just wanted to talk about the band OK Go. So is anybody familiar with OK Go in the room or seen any of their videos? Couple. So OK Go created, because their videos are so amazing and they use a lot of STEM learning in their videos, they created OK Go Sandbox. So they collaborated with educators to create a website that takes a lot of their videos and talks about the math and science beyond it and developed lessons that are aligned to the Common Core standards. So just to give you a glimpse of one of the videos, Phil, if you want to hit play for me. So that was the entire music video. And then they slow it down. By time, but you go ahead and check it out. But you can see how quickly that 4.2-second video was at the beginning, and all the math what that was involved in that to figure out how many pages that book had to be, how quickly he had to flip the book to line up with the singer actually singing on the pages of the song. And the same thing is true with a lot of the rest of the details in that video. So if we go to their OK Go Sandbox website again there for me, Phil. They have all this stuff included in the lesson, so they have different grade levels listed on different parts of this. So some of them are more aligned with the high school versus elementary school, and different content areas involved with that, whether it's physics or whether it's science or whether it's math, and actually doing some of these calculations in the classroom, and then students actually doing parts of the project that you kind of got a sense of in the video in the classroom itself, and doing some of this more authentic math in the classroom itself. So all the lessons are in the drop-down menu on the top left there, so you can see what different lessons there are. So there's like a Rube Goldberg. This one was more calculating time in essence for this. But the Rube Goldberg one is also a really awesome resource to check out for the classroom. And I sent it to our science teacher who was doing Rube Goldberg machines. Is a great catalyst to kind of build momentum for doing that kind of lesson in the classroom. So those are two fun math examples that hopefully you get a sense of different ways that maybe you can make math more engaging, authentic, and exciting for the students in the classroom rather than just being a languishing worksheet. So that was my Spark Talk. Thank you. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. So Ryan McGinnis is going to be our next speaker. Ryan is an innovative, fast-paced technology lover who enjoys helping others find ways to infuse technology in education to enhance the learning and excitement in his classrooms. His current role is a staff specialist for professional development, focusing on areas of technology integration at Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Erie, Wyoming, BOCES. Probably the longest name BOCES. Based out of Olean, New York. He has 17 years of classroom experience teaching grades 2, 4, and 5, and a STEM lab teacher. Ryan also served as an elementary principal for 2 years and decided he had enough before moving into his current role. In his spare time, he works as a content writer and trainer for Insight to Execution. It's Insight to Execution, it's not education?
Right.
I totally thought it was education.
Yeah.
Sorry, side of the conversation. One of Microsoft's largest global training partners, helping teachers across the country learn how to better use and deploy skills and resources available to teachers through Microsoft. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Ryan McGinnis.
All right. So hopefully you can hear me. Good morning. This is my very first visit to TIFF, so I didn't realize how cool this was and how much I'm missing out. And I've made it a goal this year of mine to be at TIFF, and I didn't realize that I picked a TIFF talk to come to first. So nothing like your first visit, you get put right on the spot to give a topic. So for me, you heard the bio. That was a really long bio, by the way. I just really enjoy technology. My whole life has been involving technology. It's what I do on the side. I read about technology. I just look for ways to integrate it into the classroom because it's what I am first and foremost. I'm a teacher, and then I'm a father, and a parent, and an educator at heart. So I really just look for technology. And one of the most recent trends that we've seen is using video games inside of the classroom. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk and share about some of these avenues that are coming down the line. And I thought that starting with a quote, as cliche as it may be, is actually a perfect opportunity. So this is a quote from Nolan Bushnell, who you may know as the founder of Chuck E. Cheese. Nothing better when it ties into games. But that video games foster the mindset that allows creativity to grow. We're looking at preparing our students with those computer science and digital fluency standards coming down the line. And how can we get our students to think outside of that box? Looking to push them to reach new heights in education. And video games allow us an avenue that aren't just cut and dry as far as answers and responses. It allows the ability to create the culture of creativity and allows it to grow. If you're like me, this is my introduction to video games. 1993, my family finally got a Sega Genesis, right? Aladdin. This game took me forever, and I don't think I've still beaten this game. But the idea of playing a video game is something that has stayed with me for a very long time. I've never been an avid gamer. I'm not someone who sits down and games for a long period of time, but I really enjoy the challenge that video games provide. In this case, it was me just trying not to, fall into the lava traps. The flying carpet level got me every time. I don't think I've ever made it past that level, so that gives you my idea. To what my kids have today. I take my son and my daughter, Kennedy and Connor, I take them to Splash Lagoon. They get a little free pass to go into the arcade, and look how much more immersed they are in a video game situation. Me, I had the Sega Genesis. I could sit 4 feet away from the TV because that little controller had a tether. That's about as far as I could go. I also had to fight with my 3 sisters to play it, so I didn't always have the best opportunity to play. To my kids who are now sitting, this made my whole son's trip. Sitting on top of a replica motorcycle. He didn't even care that he lost. He was terrible at driving. He's 3, so I give him credit. But it made his whole entire trip. Students have that time now. They have access to resources that we never did. And we need to embrace those resources, much like we've heard today, bringing that technology into the classroom and utilizing it for what we can. We take a look at some of the game-based statistics. When you're using a game-based learning platform, 76% of our students are already talking about gaming with their colleagues anyway. If you go to a lunch table, chances are they're talking about video games or the games they played, or that they're stuck on a level. All of that is what they're talking about anyways. 79% are nerds like me, who are constantly searching and reading and looking up content, whether it's technology, video game platforms, looking at the cheat codes to get to do something more. They're already researching more than what we realize. 35% of those students feel that through the use of video games, it helped improve their literacy skills, made them better readers. Whether that's from reading what's on the content, whether it's from doing the searching through online resources to find those guides that help them through the gaming process. To lastly, 58% of students, and this was between the ages of 11 to 16-year-old, 58% of students want schools to offer more game design courses. We always talk about how do we prepare our students for the careers that don't exist yet. That's cool. I really enjoy that. We also need to prepare them for the careers that we don't think exist or that aren't very important. My daughter, she's 6, she wants to be a YouTuber. I could easily fall into that trap and say, nope, not gonna happen. She's already taken her iPad, she's learned how to frame shots, much to my cat's dismay, of where she's capturing her cat inside of the suitcase, asking to go on vacation. She's making these little mini videos that aren't being put out anywhere, but she watches them back and then she critiques. And it's funny to watch her do that. She's also started into Minecraft, and I've watched her get frustrated, which is really good because she's a really good student. As a kindergartner, she is performing amazingly well, which makes my heart happy. But I need to see her struggle. I need to see her have that grit and that determination. And video games are giving her that grit and determination. She gets frustrated when she can't build a block or why things aren't where they're supposed to be. And it's a nice teachable moment for me to say, what's wrong? What's not working for you? How can you make that work? And it kind of calms her down for a minute from her little 6-year-old tantrum and allows her to think and process and then put that into practice. So I see this working with my own children as well. Today I'm here to talk about 3 products and their use specifically in education. 1, Minecraft education. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Fortnite Creative. And then we're going to look at Unreal Engine and Twinmotion. For me, some of the shocking statistics about Minecraft alone are just the fact that there's over 100 million monthly active users. That's a lot of active users. That's a lot of a captive audience that's available to utilize this platform. 50% of users are female. One that didn't make the cut. Does anybody know the average age of a Minecrafter? 34. This game's been around for a while. It's not new. I can tell you in our CA region, Minecraft has been known to exist. It's like the Yeti, but no one's ever seen it in action. So my push for the last 12 months has been to get Minecraft EDU back into the classroom. Can we bring it to the forefront? There's over 1,200 different educational lesson plans and activities available to teachers and students alike. We should be utilizing that more. And I'm proud to say over the course of this year, we've had more and more and more buy-in towards Minecraft EDU that I think it would make Tony Squirto proud. Right? And that's my hope. This is an example. 6th grade students in Hinsdale Central School. They were looking for a new project. This is a 6th grader who was tasked with recreating the Greek Parthenon. She chose to work by herself. Other groups chose to work together. They had to use math, figure out the scale and the size of the building. They knew that 1 block equaled 1 meter, so they had their scale ready to go. She took it a little bit further. Look at the intricate details on the inside of this. The statue in the middle of the building, the lighting underneath. You'll see the fly through. Now the world around it was generated. The building itself, all hers. It was a flat world. She built up the ground underneath it. She built up the building materials. She chose the correct building materials based on the material itself. And she was so proud. And I've also never seen anybody Minecraft nearly as fast as this young lady could craft. Very impressive. It puts all of my Minecraft building to shame. Grade 6. I can tell you that grade 6 teacher is now hooked, and Minecraft is going beyond the social studies classroom, and it's now hitting into the ELA and math classes even more. So we've already done our work structuring more and more lesson plans to bring in Minecraft EDU. So not just 6th grade, we're going to be starting it at lower grades as well.
Students are using Minecraft in my classroom to apply their strengths in various areas to creatively engage in content and demonstrate their understanding. A huge benefit that I noticed immediately upon entering a multiplayer Minecraft world with my students was that it made the learning experience equitable. When we think about equity, it's important to remember that it means presenting students with opportunities that are infused with support and resources to level the playing field, meeting students on their level, if you will. In a Minecraft world, students are entering with varied degrees of knowledge and skills related to the content we're working with and the video game play itself. Through multiplayer collaboration, students become the experts in their unique and diverse strengths, while also building upon the areas of refinement in themselves and their classmates. Students are able to demonstrate their understanding in ways that suit those unique skill sets, and I actually have found myself a bit surprised a few times. I have a few students that can be difficult to assess in terms of inconsistency. They answer correctly in class when they're engaged, and then fail to demonstrate the same level of mastery on a traditional assessment. I'm betting that probably sounds a little familiar, right? However, when given an assignment in a Minecraft world, with resources that I provided, along with a little extra help from the NPCs, these students were able to creatively bring the content to life in an incredible game-based performance assessment. These were students that I wasn't sure had even grasped the concepts yet. And then right in front of me, as I'm in the world with them, I'm able to witness their ideas come to life. Purposely leaving tasks a bit open-ended, but with a few standards aligned and some specified guidelines, students are able to really show you what they know in a world where creativity thrives.
So that's a testimonial from a teacher from Stride Learning, one of the largest K-12 charter schools across the country, utilizing it in her 4th grade classroom. What they've been able to do, even from remote learning and tying in Minecraft EDU. I wanted you to hear it from someone using it in the field, not just from me. School facilities are becoming increasingly more important to support our gaming students. Our game-based learning platforms. Duval County in Florida built an entire Minecraft lab. This thing is incredible. Over 25 game-based machine learning computers just for that purpose of gaming. Students have the ability to go into the lab. It's themed and built with different Minecraft decorations. Super cool and incredible. We switch our focus and look at Fortnite creative. So Fortnite is one of the biggest games in the entire world right now. For me, this was a big leap of faith. I played my first hand of Fortnite back in December. All right, I'm running around this world. I have no clue what I'm doing in the default skin, and all these 10-year-olds that were in the same game as me were calling me default. And it took me about 15 minutes to figure out what they were referring to, and it was my character's appearance, right? Hey, default, get out of the way. Hey, default, move. Hey, guys, check out that default. I can tell you I've been cyberbullied now by 10-year-olds, and I've lived to tell you about it. But the ability of our students to utilize Fortnite Creative, where they're able to build similar to Minecraft, and bring those skills and communication resources together. The statistics back this up. Again, 350 million monthly active users, even more so than Minecraft itself. Fortnite's growth and trajectory from when it debuted in 2017, with just under 30 million users to now over 350 million. We got to meet these students where they are. Here's where they are. They're going home. They're playing the video games. Let's find a way to bring our lesson plans in line with it. 9th graders in Canada. Iterations. Trying to make a obstacle course or a parkour course using Fortnite Creative. All these elements are available in the game. So the students are taking tasks. They're building these platforms. They're checking their jumps. When something doesn't work, they make the iteration. They learn what does and doesn't work. They make the steps. They improve the product, and then they try it again. I can't tell you how many classroom projects I've done where students just hand it in and say, I'm done. Paper-based. You give them a video game design, they're going to try it until it's perfect. Then they're going to look at their partner's video game and say, oh man, he's got that. I need that. And then they're going to go back and make that iteration again. Same thing. I can tell you about it, but a 4th grade or a life skills teacher.
My middle school life skills teacher has been using Fortnite Creative in the classroom, and the enthusiasm is just contagious. The kids absolutely love being inside this game during the school day with their peers. So one way that your students can show mastery of the content area that you are currently learning is to have them create their own scavenger hunts or escape rooms and an assessment piece that goes along with it. So once your students do that, they can actually invite other students to come to their world to solve it. So not only is your student showing mastery by creating the assessment piece and creating the world, but they're inviting other students to come in for peer collaboration to test out their knowledge and test out their skills. So your students are able to go around to each other's worlds to explore and take these assessment pieces. So students are also able to practice coding and programming skills. They're able to create music. They're able to use different building material or prefab houses to create. They're able to work together and inside each other's worlds or inside the teacher's world. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for your students to collaborate together and challenge themselves. And one thing we've noticed is that the students aren't as afraid to fail inside a gaming environment as opposed to inside a classroom, a traditional classroom environment. So the students are challenging each other to up their game. They are not as afraid to let that creativity not shine because they don't want to be different. They want to be different in Fortnite. They want to have the coolest project inside Fortnite. So they're able to problem solve and let their creativity shine through.
Not to cut her off, but I know I don't have any music to pull me off the stage yet, but we're getting close. As we get close, and you can talk more, another product's coming down the line. We have Unreal Engine and Twinmotion, and they work together seamlessly for 3D rendering and environment creation. And you're seeing medical and other professionals shift this way to using the Unreal Engine and Twinmotion. And Unreal Engine just released version 5.0, which is incredible. It is Star Wars Day, right? That's the rumor. And if you watched season 1 of The Mandalorian, Unreal Engine is what made all of the backdrops inside of season 1. They went away in season 2, tried their own in-house option, and it didn't work as well. And developers finally said, can we have Unreal Engine back for season 3? So just a little peek behind the curtain, those careers are out there. And we're talking more beyond just video game. The medical career, when you're looking at 3D practicing and simulations with VR implications. You're able to create those scenarios inside of Unreal Engine. Here is a very bad attempt, one of my very first attempts, at creating a video game inside of Unreal Engine. You can see that not only have I not gotten better at playing video games, I'm also really bad at screen grabs at the same time. So I will die about 4 times before I even make it across the platforms that I coded to be there. All right? It doesn't get any better, I promise. And then I'm going to die as I run across all of these platforms that I set up because I don't pay attention to where I'm jumping. Like, hey, guess what? Right? I should learn. But an immersive 3D world with a gallery ready to go. Students are able to make a video game and share it beyond just anything else that's available to the market right now. We're really excited about what's coming. If you haven't checked out the resources, take a look here. I put these on the website. There are 2 Wakelet collections that give you all of the teacher lesson plans, the student guides, as well as tutorial videos from the game developers as well to help you implement this in the classroom. All the resources are there. They're constantly adding more and more lesson plans, and we're looking for ways to engage our students in creating that culture of curiosity, making iterations and changes, and letting them be creative through the use of video games. So I'm Ryan McGinnis. Thank you for having me at TIFF for the very first time, and I'm happy to turn it over to Mike.
I've got five minutes here to dig into something probably near and dear to everyone's heart. State ed updates, standards, and the Danielson rubric. I was stumped on a topic, and then I wasn't sure if I wanted to go this route. I was going to go with the Day of AI. Could I really squeeze this into 5 minutes? But here's a little resource for you. This is happening on May 13th, 2022. It's by MIT Raise. I would, our school is going to give it a try. It's the first year they've ever done it. I encourage you, if you're interested at all in learning about artificial intelligence and some of its impacts on education, there might be some neat activities for your students. It's completely free. But I guess what I wanted to dig into in my 5 minutes here is just some digital literacy and media literacy. So what does this look like? And how is it evolving, and what does it look like in 2022? What will it look like in 2023 and beyond? Right? If we could take that DeLorean and travel into the future, kind of dig in just a little bit on this. So when you look at the future of work, I know I hear this phrase that 65% of today's students will be in jobs that don't exist yet. And as an educator, that kind of, and to many people, if you say that, it's like, well, how do we get them future ready with all of the unknown? So. It talks about the AI component here and the human skills and the importance of creativity. And if you look at some of those World Economic Forum reports, right, those top 10 skills that will be in demand in 2025, 2030, and really what roles do schools play in that. So I went down the rabbit hole of looking into Web3, the evolution of technology that's being built right now, and that's kind of what I felt like when I started to do my research. Because I know all of this plays a role in digital literacy and media literacy. So I guess my point is that I think this is something that we need to pay attention to. And a screenshot from this website shows all of the activity and a lot of these transactions and all of this action happening in a Web3 environment. And what does it look like? There's a lot of unknown. Some people may hear it and think it's the big joke, right? Like, what's an NFT? How does this impact education? And I think, when you look at what Ryan's doing with Minecraft and in Unreal Engine and Fortnite Creative, our students are creating. They're learning in different spaces. So when I Googled Web3, I was just curious what would come up. I'm like, okay, I've heard the term Web3. I really have no idea what it is. I've got to learn a little bit more. And it talks about some new technologies, but given the idea of a new kind of internet, right? So we're on Web 2 now that deal with decentralized blockchains. So it's like, okay, well, what's blockchain? How is this? At some point, this is going to creep into our conversations around digital literacy. And as you can see, when you type that in, you get about 44.5 million results. All right, so we know what Web 2 is, we're living in it. And what does Web 3 look like, right? And Law 2D is a part of that, right? And who we're giving our data to, and how Web 3 might help control some of that data and put it back in the hands of the user. So then I'm like, okay, well, what's blockchain? I got to look a little bit up about this. And now we'll get about 250 million results very quickly. So I'm thinking, are our students learning about Web 3, blockchain, the future of tech? What does this look like? And then I stumbled on an EdSurge article. EdSurge is a part of ISTE. And I found this interesting. Credential blockchains could help student mobility. These 4 efforts explore how. That was an article from 2020. So I know we talked a lot about badging at TIFF. How does the blockchain impact credentialing? You think about students taking on all this money with that at university. How are they going to learn in the future? How are they going to get certified? What does that look like? And there's another article, what could Web3 mean for education? So this is just some stuff that I'm trying to pay attention to, and I just wanted to share. I think I threw some resources up here, all right? And we talk about digital literacy and the skills that we need to live and learn and work in a society where communication and access to information is increasingly through digital technologies like internet platforms, social media, and mobile devices. I think we just got to pay attention to what's happening in the world around us. And then the media literacy side of this, I know when I went into this space, and I immediately on Twitter typed that I was having an issue with something, just spam bots were trying to feed me Google Forms, links, steal information. I was very surprised that the amount of spam in this space right now, trying to kind of get someone that doesn't know what they're doing in this space to just give up information to get something hacked. I think you read about one of the Instagram hacks where someone stole millions of dollars of content from one of the biggest, content holders in the Web3 space. And then when you look at the computer science and digital fluency learning standards and you see that timeline when they're hitting in September of 2024 for full implementation, how does some of this technology work its way into these spaces? So as educators, I think, and people in these tech roles, to have an awareness, of some of these spaces. And I think how our students are creating and learning is changing, right? Discord, the metaverse, LinkedIn, the Creative Cloud, right? YouTube, Twitter Spaces, OpenSea, Coursera, some free open education resources. I heard podcasts earlier as a way to get a lot of this information. And this is, some of the spaces that we need to be aware of that exist to help our students kind of navigate this future as it's rapidly evolving. Now, I'll share, the link is linked on the TIFF websites, but I think a good place to start is just the Web3 glossary. Just looking at some terminologies and just trying to make sense of some of it. It will leave you, I put some people to follow that for me are interesting. I know Michael Cohen does Educated by Design. He's been an ISTE featured speaker before. How is this space evolving and how might it impact our classrooms? I still feel like this as I'm learning about it, and I think you may too, but I think it's a good thing because it kind of pushes us and challenges us to stay on top of, evolving tech spaces. When we talk about the 65% of the jobs of the future don't exist yet, I think this is where a lot of that may happen. It may not. It may all be like, what the heck did Mike Drezek talk about in this Spark Talk? Web3 never came to fruition. But with 44.5 million hits on YouTube, I don't think it's going away. So I just think, again, in summary, that it's something we need to pay attention to. And I'm getting blocked on the video. I had a really fun video on how I feel when I leave TIFF, and I want to thank you all for giving me a spark. Thanks to all the Tif Talks speakers today. So, thank you.
Okay, before we head into lunch, we're just going to see a quick little, we're going to have a Teams meet with the tech company who was our sponsor for drinks today. They wanted to just give a little shout out, so just give us a moment to get that set up. All right, we're going to start back up again with Nicole Holler.
All right. So last week, as we were tying up all the loose ends for Tif Talks today, I reached out to Phil last week and said, hey, let me just put one more thing on your plate. You gotta come up with a blurb. You gotta come up with some sort of bio so I can introduce you. And right after I sent that email, I thought to myself, you know what? There's gotta be someone else in this room that could do a better job, or that maybe even knows him a little bit better. And we thought, you know what? This person actually can't be here today. So, without further ado, we have Phil's work wife who's going to introduce him in just a moment, as soon as we download the video.
Hi everyone. Guess who? You didn't get rid of me that easily. I'm back, well, sort of, by way of this video. So I hope you're having a great time at Tif Talks so far, and it's just about to get better, because I have the pleasure of introducing Phil Jarosz. Back in 2018, when we attended the Tif Talks together, I convinced him that he should do one the next time that they happen. And so originally the plan was that in 2019, I was going to introduce him in person. And well, we all know the pandemic history, and so here we are now. And he's still doing them, but I'm not there in person to introduce him. And I know deep down inside, he's really mad at me. But anyway, he is just amazing. So other than being absolutely fabulous, Phil is an instructional innovation support specialist for the Kenmore Tonawanda School District, and that is right outside of Buffalo, if you're not familiar. And he was my work husband and my partner in crime for quite a few years. And other than that, now he has to focus on just kind of helping teachers, you know, find new and innovative ways to engage their students to use technology. That's it. That's all. But also he is the district, not mine anymore. He is the district's infinite campus guru, and he has been leading the charge to finally get our district, started using Canvas as the LMS. And in his first teaching life, he was a secondary math teacher at Chimera High School. He's also very fancy. If you ever see his email signature, he has all these badges after his name. He's ISTE certified, he's Google Level 1 and 2 certified, and just recently he became a Canvas certified educator. And he's also a bigwig. So he is the Western New York Regional Director for NICEScape, serving on their board. So that's pretty awesome. And as if that wasn't enough, right? I mean, seriously. He, for about 21 years, he directed the high school musical at Kenmore West and was recognized for that. He was the 2018 Person of the Year for the Theater Guide, and is just now being honored again, but this time as the 2022 recipient of the Tonawanda Joseph Allen Service to Youth Award. So yay, congrats. So now I know you've had enough of me. This is going on way longer than I thought, and what you've all been waiting for, Phil Jarosz. And I know you'll be awesome. Bye.
Hi, everybody. Everything is downhill after that intro, just to let you know. It's a lot of build-up for a disappointment. Hi, everybody. You now know who I am. I'm Phil Jarosz, one of the Instructional Innovation Support Specialists in the Kenton School District. Everyone else shared something about their personal life, so I don't have kids or anything, but I am the gunkle to many, which is the gay uncle, if you don't know what that is. So it means I get to spend a lot of my own cash on many other people's children and my own niece and nephews. So there's a little bit about me personally as well. So I won't go over all the stuff that Joy said again, because you don't want to hear that stuff again. So today, in thinking about what I was going to say, the competition was steep, of course. I was like, will I dress as nice as Ryan McGinnis? I don't know. Will I be as cool and say so much information that like my head spins like Mike Drezek in a very short amount of time? I don't know. Maybe I'll do that too. So today I thought I would combine two things that really interest me, architecture and education. So for those of you who are not from the Buffalo area, haven't been up to Buffalo, you may or may not realize that Buffalo's filled with architecture, right? We have a lot of really amazing pieces of architecture in Western New York. A lot of them are very similar to what we see in Chicago, based on Louis Sullivan and some other architects who worked in Chicago who then came to Buffalo. Whether it be the Guarantee Building or Kleinhans Music Hall or the Central Terminal, you see a lot of these buildings everywhere. And I think a lot like buildings and architecture, education is sort of in the same mindset for people in general. Everyone's been inside a building, everyone knows what the four walls of a building looks like, right? So we all are used to that. In the same way that you've had parents and other people from outside education come into your classroom and think, well, I sat through school, so I know how to do this too, right? Like I didn't learn how to do math. I mean, that was my math teacher conference all the time with parents. Was like, well, I suck at math, so therefore, my kid does too. Great growth mindsets, right? But in the same way that education, everyone sits in the classroom but doesn't understand the mastery that happens on the other side, buildings and architecture are similar in that way. So, as Sophia Petrillo would say on The Golden Girls, picture it Sicily, 1922, except we're going to picture it Buffalo, circa 1990 in middle school. I was fortunate enough to be part of a program with a teacher, Fred Weber, who he and his wife were longtime educators in the Kenton School District. Yes, I'm one of those people who didn't go very far and just came right back to where I went to school to work. And around 1990, late 80s, early 90s, we took a field trip. And we took this really cool field trip where we left school for a day and a bus dropped us off at the University at Buffalo metro station, right? Our one-way subway to nowhere, right? It goes back and forth only, it goes in two directions. And we got to tour the art and artwork of the subway stations, which if you've never done is a really cool experience. At certain stations you could get off. I wouldn't say hang out there for long periods of time, but there's some really cool artwork that Buffalo has put into those stations. And at one of the stops we got out, and we got to explore this really cool thing in the Parkside neighborhood, the Darwin Martin House. The Darwin Martin House is a house that lives in the Parkside neighborhood, which is the neighborhood adjacent to Delaware Park. It's also adjacent to the zoo, so if you've been to the Buffalo Zoo, you've probably seen this. It's on Jewett Parkway. And the Darwin Martin House at the time in the 90s was in pretty bad disrepair. Only the main house still existed, which was the original house designed for the family of Darwin Martin. There used to be other buildings on the campus that had then been replaced by newer buildings, not fancy buildings, but other homes, apartment buildings, so on and so forth. So the building had really been just sort of just the main building. There was a weird guy from UB who was sort of living there who would give you tours. And so here we were, little 7th or 8th graders walking in and checking it out. And so, a lot of the windows were missing, as you may know if you've been there recently. And one time I went to San Francisco and went to a museum there that had one of the windows. I thought I should just put this in my back pocket so we can save Buffalo a lot of money and just put the original window back in. But it really sparked my interest in architecture, and it really sparked my interest in design. And so when you begin to think about the man behind building this house, Frank Lloyd Wright, a genius architect from the early 20th century who built a lot of homes. We see a lot of their homes in Western New York. There's a lot of homes just outside Chicago. There's also a lot of buildings that he has built. You begin to see a lot of connections between Frank Lloyd Wright's design philosophy and education. And so I started to take a little peek into his design philosophy. There's Falling Water, which if you haven't visited, is magnificent to go see. If you're down, you can visit Ryan on the way down and on the way back in Pennsylvania. Take a little detour. And so his design philosophy is described on the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation's website. It's divided into 4 sort of pillars. And one pillar is design for democracy. Frank Lloyd Wright believed that he designed buildings for every man, rather than designing one building so that every man fits in that one building. And I think about this as being very akin to our universal design for learning. When we think about UDL, we think about allowing everyone to come to the table and be able to eat, right? And there's a great analogy from one of the UDL experts whose name escapes me right now, so I apologize for those of you who know who she is. But if you have a chance to look at her YouTube video, she talks about making dinner for a group of people and not knowing who's a vegetarian and who has this and who has these dietary needs. But by making a meal that everyone can come to the table and eat, you're servicing everyone at the same time. And so when I think about Frank Lloyd Wright's design for democracy, there you see a picture of the Guggenheim Museum. You notice it's a ramp. If you've never been in the Guggenheim, the whole museum is a ramp, right? That means that everyone can access the art, right? There isn't a stairway in the way. There isn't an elevator in the way or an escalator to block someone from using it. In the same way, when we design lessons for education, we have to think about that as well. We have to think that our students are all coming to the table with different needs, and can we provide them with multiple means of representation, multiple means of participation, multiple means of action, so that every student has the same access to the same learning. And this was one of Frank Lloyd Wright's guiding principles. Another guiding principle of his is integrity and connection. Integrity is important. I think there's nothing, you can't build a better connection with a student than being yourself in front of that student. That's how we make connections with students. We all know that we teach in a fairly large district of 6,700 kids. And I know that there are students I connect with when I taught in the high school and students I didn't connect with. But I was always authentically myself to make those connections. And Frank Lloyd Wright believed that buildings, like people, must first be sincere and must be true, and then also nourish the lives of those within. Nothing could tell us more about how bad things are in education right now than if you walk down the hallway and see teachers, and I know we've all seen them, teachers on the brink, right? We have students on the brink and we have teachers on the brink, and they all need to be nourished. I think it's important in our roles as coaches, as administrators, and as teachers to not only nourish our students and provide them with connections to their own life and connect with them in ways that shows that you care about them and you're concerned about them, but also nourish our colleagues and nourish those who might work and report to us as well. Everyone needs a little bit of nourishment. And so I think the school, not unlike architecture and education, can provide that nourishment for a well-rounded individual. If you've ever been in Frank Lloyd Wright House, you'll notice there's a lot of windows and there's a lot of nature brought inside, right? He really did believe in developing structures that were in harmony with their place, time, and inhabitants. Thinking about making those connections in the lessons and the content to our students' lives is really, really important. How do we take what's important to them and bring it into the classroom? Like Ryan said, look at how many students or how many people are using all those different gaming systems. How do we bring what they love into the classroom and connect it with what we're doing inside the classroom? How do we connect everything together? And by the same token, he really did believe, if you've ever been inside a building, you will see that he designed everything from the structure itself to the furniture, to the lighting, to the carpet that's on the floor, to picking out what artwork might be on the wall. He thought of everything. And I think of this past year when I would dip into someone's Google Classroom and think, my God, how does any student learn in this online environment, right? There's just no order, it's all over the map, whatever. And I think as educators and as coaches, when we help teachers out, it's important for us to make sure that we are creating a link for students between what they're learning, what the assessment might look like, and what the overall learning goal is. And if we are not helping design those as master designers, and we're not helping making those connections for students between those things, then we are really putting our students at a disadvantage. So we really are the architect. I didn't really want to make that joke, but we are the architect of their learning in a way that it's important. That also goes for graphic design, right? When I was first thinking about what I was going to talk about today, I almost went down a graphic design route because I do love design, as you can see. But I was really thinking about how important it is for consistency in design, even for students. What are the expectations? Especially if you have an online or hybrid learning environment, how does my student know what to do next? How do they know what to expect? What kind of organization tool do we have? The three of us coaches at Will 4, when Joy was with us too, were really concentrating on, hey, how do we keep things organized for our students? What structures can we put in place? What routines can you put in place to help keep students organized? And in that way, I think about the structures and the principles of bringing things in from the outside, bringing things in that interest students from the outside, and also providing them with structure, really being the master designer who's thinking about, this is where I gotta get the kids, and this is where they are right now. Frank Lloyd Wright was an innovator, for sure. For sure. And many of us in this room are considered innovators. We have innovator in our title, or we like to say we're an innovator, right? We're Microsoft Innovative Instructor, Educator, right? We all got innovators in our title, right? But with innovation comes a little bit of danger. You're always hovering, always teetering on that edge of failure. And with innovation comes failure, and we have to be ready. Even Frank Lloyd Wright had a lot of failure, right? Some people would say now, in hindsight, hey, that cantilever design that he came up with falling water, it's not really so sturdy. But, they've gone back and fixed it, fine, so it looks pretty again. But, there's a lot of things. That example there on the left-hand side there is a mile-high tower that he had designed for Chicago that never got built with a cantilever design. And Frank Lloyd Wright was not known for vertical structures, mostly horizontal, low-lying structures. But we always have to be prepared for that failure piece, right? We have to be prepared, as Ryan said, like, hey, I made this jump too big and I can't make it, right? We have to instill that grit on our students, and we have to be strong enough in our own conviction to know that even though this initiative that we are the face of or that we're hanging on to may fail at some point, like, we have to know we got to be able to pick up our bootstraps and keep moving forward. And so in the same way that Frank Lloyd Wright was an innovator in both material and construction and machine, he was really big into technology as well, that we also have to be the same way as innovators in our field. And finally, his last pillar is that architecture is the great mother art. He really saw architecture as the thing that brings everyone together, right? There's nothing really more powerful, I think, than realizing that a school really has a sense of community and culture, right? When buildings bring us together. We're all together in this auditorium together. We all believe sort of in the same thing. It's really powerful in a school, like at a pep rally, when you see every kid and every faculty member really cheering. And I think that education can be that unifier, right? We have to be able to take our students in no matter where they are and bring them together. And I think that's an important charge for education to have. And I think that we can make our students beautiful works of art if we make sure that we are keeping these things in mind, that we have to be concerned with what's happening outside, we have to be concerned with nourishing them on a daily basis, and we have to be sure that we provide them with some structures to help them be better learners. So I'm really sort of fortunate that 30-some years ago, I was in, not to age myself, 30? I hope I did that math right, otherwise it's really embarrassing. 30-some years ago, I got to take a tour of this amazing site. And it just so happens that 5 years ago or so, I bought a house in that neighborhood. And so now I live one block from this amazing work of art, as does my friend and colleague Dave, who lives around the corner just a block away from me. And you can see now in this drone footage here that they've now taken the time to rebuild each of the other structures that were torn down in the time since it was built in the early 20th century to now being nearly complete, almost complete except for a couple windows, and with the gardens and everything like that. And so even though things in our life, things in the work that we do get torn down, that there's always a chance to be rebuilt and rebuild that creativity and bring other people in. And you'll know that it's one of the most visited sites when people come to visit Buffalo, New York. So there's another little shot of the whole thing. So I want to thank you very much. That was my talk, and I've got some links to some cool things with Frank Lloyd Wright in it. So thank you, everybody.
Our next Spark Talk presenter is filling in, ably, of course, Amanda Pacanowski. She's filling in for Shaun, who has a tickle in his throat. Shaun, are you still here?
Just so you all know, if you've talked to Shaun, he's perfectly fine. He can talk just fine. So he's just not wanting to get up here. So last minute, I'm throwing in here, my little Spark Talk is about playing to learn. So I want to kind of just a little background discussion. On the Canva there, if you can see it on the screen, the second picture is actually in my classroom. It's Mega Blocks, and this is actually a structure that I happened to just snap a picture. It was built in the background yesterday. I wish I had more pictures of the dominoes and the Mega Blocks and the Legos and all the Magna tiles that kids have kind of built in my classroom, but that was all I could grab for the authentic picture. The rest is just kind of thrown in there. So a pedagogy of play can enliven a classroom for students of all ages. I think a lot of times play is discussed at the younger ages, and in the early days, play is how we relate to the world, it's how we relate to each other. When children have time and opportunity to play, that's how we kind of see them spark their natural curiosity. As they do these things, they build skills and aptitudes that they'll keep throughout life. Older students are often not given that chance of play. We have curriculum to get to, and at that point in time, is it really valuable for them to play? We start to question. Well, I'd like to argue that play is important at all ages. So older students can benefit from play in the classroom too. It's a strategy for learning at any age. So I want to challenge everybody to give, at any age, the opportunity for others to learn through play. Some ideas that you could offer, and some things that I use kind of as those like fillers. You finished early. Instead of saying, you finished early, now I want you to do these 10 other assignments, or you finished early, now you have to go on to this next level. I have in my classroom just bins that the kids know that they can go to and take. I have a bin of Legos, a bin of Mega Blocks. They have a link, which we did as an assignment, to Oregon Trail, which if you haven't looked it up, the actual game is available to play. If I have a sub and the kids finish early, I just leave notes for the sub. The kids can play Oregon Trail. They have the link in Google Classroom, and they love to go back to that. Cardboard. So I just did a cardboard challenge, and students are building skee-ball games, gumball machines, basketball games. All of that is kind of going on. Kids that didn't want to build it by hand went on and are building it through a 3D digital build, which is great. So just having cardboard, you open up a box, throw it in the back of the room, let them have at it. They can build whatever they want. And dominoes. So a lot of those things are games that we think back to our childhood of playing, When I brought in the Legos and Mega Blocks, I actually had a 7th grader who was just rotating to me in the new quarter and said, I haven't played with these since I was like in 4th grade. I was like, well, here they are. Have at it. So I want to just challenge everybody to think about the fact that you can learn a lot through play at any age, and it sparks your natural curiosity, it builds social skills, it builds academic skills, and it just challenges you to think outside of the box when you don't have the rigid structure in front of you. And I believe that those are skills that anyone can use through life. So I feel like play can offer those real life skills as well. So that's all I have for you for my Spark Talk. Now I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is from Pine Valley. Chandell Nichols is a middle school English teacher at Pine Valley Central School. She integrates technology in her classroom and other roles on a daily basis. Chandell has worked with Pine Valley for 4 years. During this time, she has also been a part of the girls' soccer team in various coaching positions and the middle school class advisor.
So I am a middle school English teacher at Pine Valley, as y'all heard. So mine looks like a book because books are my life next to students. And this is a love story. I may love Google Sheets a little bit. It may be awkward, so you're welcome. And I wasn't quite sure about the introduction, so here I am again. And I am a little cliche. Sorry, I bumped that. I'm not used to these. I've never actually worn a headset before. And I'm talking to all these tech people who use technology every day. Doing well. Okay, so I chose this quote because I use Google Sheets every day. And at first, when I was starting to use it, it was something that I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I don't think I can do that. Technology is too much. And now that I've been using it for about 2 years, I couldn't think of my life without it. I had to dig deep for this next couple of pictures. So I'm going to talk to y'all about grading. And I know many of you in here aren't teachers at this moment, but you are helping teachers. So grading is the bane of every day for me. I hate grading, but I'm going to do an entire presentation on it. This is what my grade book looked like when I started teaching 4 years ago. It was a hot mess, and my students would tell you the same thing. They would come up and ask to look at their grades, and they would be like, Miss Nichols, that's not so well together. It was in all different colors. There were highlights everywhere, crosses out. This is just a general picture that I got offline, but mine looked very much like this. And because it looked like that, I struggled with a couple of things. I struggled with identifying student-specific strengths and their struggles. And I am going to have to look back at my paper every once in a while. I do apologize for that. My kids are going to kick me for it because they are going to be looking at this and grading me because they're doing TED Talks at the end of the school year, and they're going to be like, Miss Nichols, you looked at your paper, you fail. Okay, so I saw grading as a means to an end.
Those are going to be going on now for the next half hour.
Oh, okay. So I saw grading as a means to an end, that it wasn't cyclical. And now I see grading as part of the cycle. It's not the end. I also struggled with reteaching because grading was the end. I didn't go back, and now I go back. And Google Sheets has really helped me do that. And then last but not least, it's helped me to align to the standards. I've always cared a lot about the standards, but in the past couple of years, I have started to care so much more. And my administration, who's sitting in the back, is looking at me like, oh man, sorry we didn't fire you at first, but I promise it gets better. Okay, so year one, what we were just looking at, I was a sinking ship. It was a struggle to just stay afloat. Year two, I started to move on. I got a little better. I did these things that were like check-ins, and I was like, okay, we're going to look at the standards, and we're going to check in and see how y'all do, and then I'm going to teach. But my check-ins were just taking time away from what I was really teaching to teach what I was supposed to be teaching. And they didn't go together. And then year three, my teacher bestie, Miss Mullen, or Miss Allison Mullen, showed me Google Sheets and a way to integrate standards-based grading. And I think that now I feel that we are sailing instead of sinking or stuck. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about standards-based grading, and I'm going to incorporate Google Sheets with that. Okay, so this is a snapshot of a PowerPoint that my students see at the beginning of every year, along with their parents. I share it with them as well. And this is just to give them a little insight on what standards-based grading is. If you haven't heard about standards-based grading, which I think most of y'all should have, there is a link to a resource that breaks it down even more at the end of this slideshow. And we are going to focus on this part here that's in color. Everybody likes color, so we're going to focus on the colored part. And how I use, how I go from 0 to 4, and I don't really put in the percents. I go 0 to 4 when I'm looking at my grading scale. Okay, so, oh, my video cannot be loaded. That's so sad. So, I'm going to talk a little bit off of here because I had expected that video to load and I was going to go along with it. If you get into the link on my page, you'll watch the video, and it has me going through the Google Sheets and showing you how I format those by using the conditional formatting. And I see many of you, you're like, conditional formatting, we do that. That's awesome, because if you hadn't done that, this might have been a little difficult to explain. So I take it, and if a student gets, I put all the names down the left side, and then across the top, I put the standards, and underneath that, I put the assignments that go along with those standards. I put the standards first, because that is what I'm grading for, not whether or not they did well on the assignment, whether or not they understand the standard. And I'll talk about that in a later slide. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But then I use conditional formatting to give them a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it'll look like, oh, now the clicker doesn't want to work. Technology is my friend. Okay, so it'll look like this. When you put in a 3, well, when I put in a 3, I use the conditional formatting for it to make the color yellow, and then 4s are greens, 1s are red, and you get the picture. So this allows me to go back and to do that reteaching and to see the cycle. Because here, when I started, as you see, there's no week 1. It starts right off with week 2, because week 1 is when I taught the lesson and we all did it together. However, they started to do the independent practice for this standard in week 2. And when we did the independent practice, I was able to pick out the kids who were struggling. Those were my kids who were my zeros, my ones, and my twos. They were the ones who weren't quite at mastery or almost to mastery. They needed more than just a little practice. They needed my assistance to go back and do things. So I was able to pick out these 4 students who needed me to reteach for them. And then my 2 students with 4s, I was able to give them more difficult work on the same standard. And my students with 3s, I allowed them to practice, and I told them if you need to talk to each other, that's okay. It was okay if they worked together because they needed that more practice, and sometimes one other student had that information that they didn't have to get them to that 4. Then I moved on and I had to reteach again because I noticed that my second student, Audrey, even though I retaught her with that small group, she wasn't getting it, or I confused her even more. So I had to go back and I spent some one-on-one time with Audrey because she went from a 2 to a 1. And I spent some time with my other students who went from a 3 to a 2. At 3, I expected them to just need the more practice. But they didn't need just more practice, they needed me to do some reteaching for them. And last but not least, I don't have any circles for the last one because at that point, if most of my students are at 3s or 4s, that's when I notice I can move on. If I hadn't gotten to this point, then I would have had a week 5 and a week 6. However, I know that that's not always plausible because there are state tests, there is an end of the school year, we don't just continue through 7th grade forever. But before I get to that, these are where I put the skill or the standard at the top, and everything that is, every assignment is within this standard. So if I am grading for 7R6, which is a point of view standard, then I'm only looking at how they answered those point of view questions. Yes, I may put in some other questions that are review, but I'm not grading those. I'm only grading the ones that go along with this standard. Okay, so now we're going to talk about time crunching a little bit because we don't have forever to teach these kids. I wish we did, but we don't. So this assignment as an essay in middle school, in my middle school class, it takes us about 2 weeks to write an essay. We struggle with going back and reteaching right in that 2 weeks because it's an entire 2 weeks. We don't have that much time to do another reteach and take another 2 weeks. So what I do here with my essays is we teach it the first time, I look and see how they're doing, and then the next time I go and teach their essays, I say, okay, how did they do with the introductions? And as you can see, many of my students struggled with their introduction the first time that I taught it. Then when I went to go teach our third essays, I focused a lot on introductions, and I didn't focus so much on body paragraphs because that's what they already had done well. And I was able to go back and reteach here. So this also works knowing that we do have time crunches. And then I use this year to year. I'm one of those lucky teachers because I work in a small school that I get to have my students in 7th and 8th grade. It's not a different teacher, it's just me. That means that my 7th graders who were struggling on something that maybe I didn't get to go back and reteach in 7th grade, I got to go back and reteach it in 8th grade and look at their struggles that they had from 7th grade to 8th grade. That might not work in every school because not every school has the same 7th and 8th grade teacher. However, we're going to go back. You can share Google Slack. You can share Google Sheets. It's able to be used amongst content areas in multiple grade levels. You don't have to only be one teacher. If I was writing this in my handwritten grade book, then I'm the only one who gets to see it. When it's on here, I get to share it with my lead. I get to share it with the next year's group of teachers. I do print these out typically and share them with my teacher for next year. Right now, her and I are talking about the struggles of her reading it, but I think that if her and I got to sit down and talk about what this meant, then she would better be able to utilize this as a tool. Okay, and I think that's everything. Thanks.